August 9th, 2023. Local time is 7:29, and we are currently the sun is transiting gate 7, currently line 4, in about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In about 4 hours, we're going to move into line 5, and that would be gate 7 and gate 13 that are moving from line 4 to line 5 in 4 hours. This is going to be a little bit shorter because Luke and I are starting a retreat today. We're going to be leading a retreat. Got some guys flying in. And, if you saw in the general chat, also Maui is on fire right now, and there's a lot of wind, and people are losing their homes, and some loss of life at some point. It's been pretty hectic over here. So any prayers that you guys can spare for us would be greatly appreciated. Definitely a lot of turmoil. We are on the opposite side of the island as well, just so you guys know, like, we're safe and always happy to receive prayers, but the people on the other side of the island can definitely use them right now. So just a refresher, we're in the tail end of line 4, the abdicator, which is the willingness to accept the judgment of the people and or the rule of law. In the exaltation, we have the grace and wisdom to step down for the benefit of the whole, the capacity of the self to accept judgment from others. And in the detriment, we have one who must be forced from power by overwhelming opposition, which is the refusal of the self to accept the judgment of others. So, as it is with the transits, again, this is a sort of conditioning element that everybody is experiencing. Really, only the people that are born during this time are going to have these influences permanently set into their genetic sequencing. And so for the rest of us, the energy of the abdicator, the willingness to accept judgment of the people and or the rule of law, again, that's like the weather. It's passing through, and ultimately, it doesn't change your strategy, doesn't change your authority, but it is something to be mindful of, especially if it bridges a gap for you. For instance, if you have the 31, which is the harmonic gate to gate 7, the 7 on in transit could give your influence, an army to lead finally, and it might feel really good, but it would be a mistake to start a business, move across the country, enter into any kind of relationship that expects you to maintain the energy of the 7 indefinitely, because again, this is a transit. This is not a part of your natal chart. This is weather patterns. And so with that being said, we're going to move from the abdicator to the general, which I'm going to go ahead and read that. And this is all out of the definitive book of human design. The leadership whose authority must be absolute and is sanctioned by society in times of crisis. Exaltation is the gift of attracting the gift of attracting loyalty necessary in harmonizing the potential of society, the capacity of the self through its role to attract loyalty. And in detriment, it is the commander isolated from his troops and obsessed with victory at any price, which is the lack of loyalty where the self insists on isolation. So, Luke, you want to read line 4 and then line 5?
Yeah. 6 in the 4th place means the army retreats, no blame. In face of a superior enemy with whom it would be hopeless to engage in battle, an orderly retreat is the only correct procedure because it will save the army from defeat and disintegration. It is by no means a sign of courage or strength to insist upon engaging in a hopeless struggle regardless of circumstances. So yeah, like Marco was saying, it's not a good time to start a business or start a relationship or make a big move, do anything like that. It's time to pull back and reevaluate and look at what the move could be taken later.
Yeah, like what the judgment of the people or what the rule of law has spoken, or rather, like, what is reality showing you?
6 in the 5th place means there is game in the field. It furthers one to catch it without blame. Let the eldest lead the army. The younger transports corpses. Then perseverance brings misfortune. Game is in the field. It has left its usual haunts in the forest and is devastating the fields. This points to an enemy invasion. Energetic combat and punishment are here thoroughly justified. are here thoroughly justified, but they must not degenerate into a wild melee in which everyone fends for himself. Despite the greatest degree of perseverance and bravery, this would lead to misfortune. The army must be directed by an experienced leader. It is a matter of waging war, not of permitting the mob to slaughter all who fall into their hands. If they do, defeat will be the result, and despite all perseverance, there is danger of misfortune.
Damn, that's a heavy one.
That is super heavy.
Any synthesis of that from you?
Let the eldest lead the army, the younger transports the corpses. Yeah, it's like, don't let those roles switch. Like, you got to keep your general safe in a situation like this, because if you lose your generals, you lose your lead, and then everyone's gonna run awry and like try to fend for themselves. Important, to be out on the field, but also not to be left like stranded per se.
Right. Well, in the Rave I Ching, it talks about the polarity is the difference between the capacity of the self to attract loyalty or the capacity of the self that insists on isolation, which is ultimately it's an obsession with victory. So it's, again, we're talking about the disconnection between the head and the feet, the thing that leads the body, and then the thing that actually moves the body into different positions and whatnot. So, see, powerful. Okay, so now let's move to the Earth, which again I've been working with the transits for a bit, and one of the ways that I view the Earth is like a cup. So this is the cup that's holding that energy, just like our body is holding our consciousness. So Gate 13 is the fellowship of man. It's the listener, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. Currently, we're in the tail end of line 4 with the line of fatigue, which is the point of exhaustion eventually reached when one is too tired to fight. The exaltation is the renaissance that comes with truce and its eventual reinvigoration, openness which leads to exhaustion and the need for silence. The detriment is emotional exhaustion, appeasement, and withdrawal, a role where openness is a vulnerability. You want to read the fourth line?
Yeah. He climbs up on his wall. He cannot attack. Good fortune. Here the reconciliation that follows quarrel moves nearer. It is true that there are still dividing walls on which we stand confronting one another, but the difficulties are too great. We get into straits, and this brings us to our senses. We cannot fight, and therein lies our good fortune.
So again, that kind of like standstill kind of energy.
Yeah, it's like putting differences aside for the greater good, which to me is like, with the fires going on, tourists and Kanaka, like, put our differences aside. Everybody put their differences aside and come together, for the land, for the people, and make sure everybody is taken care of and safe.
Okay, and then 4 hours from now, we're going to move into line 5, which is the savior. It's the ability to overcome all obstacles for the betterment of humanity. Exaltation is the charismatic genius who can find a role for everybody, the listener that has a gift for finding roles for others. And the detriment is being the able administrator. Given the extreme positive nature of this position, mundane application is rare. The listener whose gift for finding a role for people, the listener whose gift for finding a role for others is practical and suited to administration. Which is kind of like, this detriment is, again, a positive detriment. So moving into, it's through listening that we're able to help each other find our place. For instance, like with conditioning, one of the things that's really important to note is that, not everyone is going to be super stoked and super excited to be like, yeah, I'm going to let go of the thing that has worked for me for the past, 20, 30 years. And a lot of the times, or not a lot of the times, but some of the times, you can be met with a very hostile resistance in the same way that, when you're doing a parasite cleanse, the parasite goes deeper into the body because it doesn't want to be expelled, because the parasite knows that if it is not in a body, then it's going to die. And so in the, and we're about to welcome some men into our space and hold some space for some men to let go of some shit, their demons, so to speak, do not want to be exorcised from them because they're parasitic, because they are dependent on the host. And so within and of this role, just understanding that, again, in finding a role, in finding the true role or finding where you belong in society, deconditioning yourself, there is, they call it the dark night of the soul within spirituality. A lot of people call it, different stuff. 40 days in the desert. You come up against these parts of yourself that wants to believe that this is all there is and that this is all there will be, and that, that whatever it is that you've been doing is going to work forever. It's just that conditioning, because that's all you've seen. Sometimes the unknown is scarier than the known, even though the known might be incredibly detrimental or degenerative or have a lot of negative impacts. Is one of the reasons why people stay in quote unquote toxic relationships or unhealthy relationships, is because, well, at least it's better than not knowing or confronting this idea that, oh, am I unlovable? But if you never confront that idea, then of course you'll never actually settle into the role, which is, yes, I am lovable, but I'm not lovable because of the things that I think I'm lovable for. There's a set of qualities that through human design, we can, again, run experiments and actually discover what is it about ourselves that we love, as opposed to what we've been told that we're supposed to love. Which is a very subtle but very different distinctions. And oftentimes they're completely polarized.
Well said. Well said.
Boogie
Right. We're in the fifth now?
Fifth line, yeah.
Okay, I'll read the fifth line. From the I Ching, 9 in the fifth place means men bound in fellowship first weep and lament, but afterward they laughed. After great struggles, they succeed in meeting. So what this makes me think of is looking at the hexagram itself, and we've got, a yang line on the bottom, and then a broken yin line, and then building back up all yang lines above that. So it's like going through this transit seems like there's a disrupt in the second day of the transit that like really shook the next couple days after that. And now it feels like, we're in the fifth day of the transit, it's starting to come back together. So with that said, two people are outwardly separated, but in their hearts they are united. They are kept apart by their positions in life. Many difficulties and obstructions arise between them and cause them grief, but remaining true to each other, they allow nothing to separate them. And although it costs them a severe struggle to overcome the obstacles, they will succeed. When they come together, their sadness will change to joy. Confucius says of this, life leads the thoughtful man on a path of many windings. Now the course is checked. Now it runs straight again. Here winged thoughts may pour freely forth in words. There the heavy burden of knowledge must be shut away in silence. But when two people are at one in their inmost hearts, they shatter even the strength of iron or of bronze. And when two people understand each other in their inmost hearts, their words are sweet and strong, like the fragrance of orchids.
So really, it's just about individual, personal relationships, one-on-one relationships.
And not having understanding differences between one another. Like you can't agree on everything,
right?
But we can agree on. It's like agree to disagree,
right?
Without letting it be a detriment, hating one another. Wow, that was beautiful. Confucius poetry.
Confucius poetry, very magical. Okay, well, let's hit this I Ching. So, if you guys want to bring a question into your mind, I'm about to throw some coins, and we're about to draw up our own I Ching. So, as opposed to the transits, again, which are transitory. I mean, I guess this could be transitory as well, but this is more of like a guiding oracle, similar to like pulling a tarot card or reading your tea leaves or something like that. So, we got one tails. That's yin.
Yep.
You want to start with me?
Oh, heads.
Yang.
Young. Yeah. That fire.
Fire. Yeah. That's a head.
Yeah.
Tails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Cool. Got opposite trigrams. Is that fire?
That's yeah, water under fire.
Mari getting chills.
Yeah, this is, and there's no changing line either
I know.
or anything.
So fire on top of water. Water, the abysmal.
Yeah, water.
So fire is here. Yeah.
Yeah.
64 before completion.
Oh, okay.
$64. It's cool. We haven't gone to 64 but yet.
Wei Qi.
Wei Qi before completion. Water below the fire. This hexagram indicates a time when the transition from disorder to order is not yet completed. The change is indeed prepared for, since all the lines in the upper trigram are in relation to those in the lower. However, they are not yet in their places. While the preceding hexagram offers an analogy to autumn, which forms the transition from summer to winter, this hexagram presents a parallel to spring, which leads out of winter's stagnation into the fruitful time of summer. With this hopeful outlook, the Book of Changes comes to its close. The judgment, before completion, success. But if the little fox, after nearly completing the crossing, gets his tail in the water, there is nothing that would further.
Success. Don't get your tail wet.
Don't get your tail wet. Don't drag ass while you're doing the crossing of water. The conditions.
It's like oh man, this is so important. So there's a tendency when you're right about to cross the finish line for you to stop keep your foot on the gas. And so this is kind of like just because we're at the end and we're like inches away from the finish line doesn't mean that somebody else can't come up from behind and take the race from you. Like, don't get your tail wet. Don't drag as you cross the river, because there's rivers in the Amazon that are actually boiling hot. And if you get your tail, like, you're burnt. So
Snake grab you.
yeah, this is really relevant for me because when I would run track, I would always be the fastest, but my coach would always say, "You're not running against the fastest, and you're the last 10%. You know you're going to win, so you stop running as hard as you can, but you need to run as hard as you can until you're completely across the line, and then you can let off the gas because then you've actually won." And that showed up a lot of times in my life with like businesses and relationships where I'd go like 95, 96% of the way, but the last like 2-3%, I would get lazy and I would take my foot off the gas, thinking that the job was complete, but we're still in that process. So ultimately, it's like remain vigilant and remain in the wave or in the rhythm of success that has brought you success. Which is like, I was actually thinking during the transit, I was like, are we going to still do this during Maui Mana during our retreat? And this hexagram is telling me, yeah, you're going to keep doing it during the retreat, which we can do it, for a shorter amount of time, kind of like we are doing today, like an abridged version, just because there's a lot to do today, and there will be a lot to do tomorrow. So the next few days might even be even more abridged, but just this in general has just been so important for me. And then also I hope for the community. I know it's been good for me and Luke. So in the essence of like, just do it for you and Luke, like that Confucius poem, this has been really helpful for us. So yeah, we're going to keep doing it. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I just went to the back of the Book of Changes as well. So this is a commentary on the judgment. Before completion, success. Where the yielding attains the middle. The little fox has nearly completed the crossing. He is not yet past the middle. He gets his tail in the water. There is nothing that would further, because the matter does not go on at the end. Although the lines are not in their appropriate places, the firm and the yielding nevertheless correspond. Interesting. That's something that we could probably interplay at what's the word? Not implement at some point. Back to the paragraph of the judgment. The conditions are difficult. The task is great and full of responsibility. It is nothing less than that of leading the world out of confusion back to order. But it is a task that promises success because there is a goal that can unite the forces now tending in different directions. At first, however, one must move warily, like an old fox walking over ice. The caution of a fox walking over ice is proverbial in China. His ears are constantly alert to the cracking of the ice as he carefully and circumspectly searches out the safest spots. A young fox who as yet has not acquired this caution goes ahead boldly, and it may happen that he falls in and gets his tail wet when he is almost across the water. Then, of course, his effort has been all in vain. Accordingly, in times before completion, deliberation and caution are the prerequisites of success. So deliberation and caution are the prerequisites of success. So yeah, it's knowing how to listen to what's happening around you. Like the old fox is walking across the ice and can tell the differences probably between like a small crack and a large crack and a deep crack and a shallow crack, and whether it's going to go out below him or not.
Right. Which you only would learn that by watching someone fall in or falling in yourself.
Yeah. It's very martyr.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of life is like, although we are these unique expressions, similar to like we all have masculine and feminine energies in us, while one is expressed physically, one might be felt in, energetically, like there's no avoiding how we learn as human beings. And there's no avoiding the form that you've actually manifested into. And so very important to pay attention to what reality is. And again, with the age of the internet and virtuality and VR quickly approaching, there's going to be a lot of people that are disconnecting from their bodies. It's already happening now. And, a big part of this Discord in this server is how can we use human design to further descend, further descend into form, to further accept and love the forms that we're in. And again, erase the conditioning of like, oh, I want to be this way or I want to be that way. It's like, well, this is how you actually are. So if you actually start to embrace it, then maybe some of the things that you want, you can actually feel, as opposed to, oh, let's just validate delusion. It's like, no, we can all agree there's certain things here in reality, like there's fires on Maui, there's heavy winds. You can pray and try and meditate it all you want, but while that dude is praying, I'm going to go get water and I'm going to go bring water to people. So with that being said, love you guys. We'll catch you tomorrow, probably a lot earlier than today, as we'll be, again, hosting a retreat. The recording will be up soon, and hope everyone has a lovely day. Again, thank you all for the prayers and the love. Aloha.